hello there.
Hello. I'm glad we could make this work. I felt so bad. I'm my LinkedIn DMs are it's like a dumpster fire.
A black hole. Yeah.
Yeah, I get so many and they get pushed down and then I have to like for my own sanity kind of put them to the
Y-
side and focus on email and text and like all the other things that I get. And then every so often I was at an event last night and I scroll through and try to reply to people and I was like, "Oh no, I totally missed it."
No, no worries at all. I get it. A lot of times you're probably like this too. I'll respond in my head and then realize I never actually responded.
Yep, I do that frequently.
Yeah. So without further ado, because 30 minutes will go quickly, we can get started if you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so hi everyone, welcome back. I'm really excited to introduce a guest who challenges some of the biggest assumptions we often hear about entrepreneurship, especially around funding and who gets to build a successful business. Joining us is Allison Byers, founder of Scroobious and author of Funding for the Rest of Us. Allison has built her work around making entrepreneurship more accessible, particularly for founders who may not fit the traditional venture backed mold. Her platform, Scroobious, focuses on connecting underestimated founders with the resources, tools, and support they need to launch and grow businesses. And in her book, she explores alternative pathways to funding that go beyond the typical raise the venture capital or fail narrative. This conversation is especially relevant to what we've been learning in this course. And so things like opportunity identification, validating a problem solution fit, building an MVP, understanding your customer, thinking critically about different business models and funding strategies. So, Allison, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm really excited to dive in.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me and that awesome introduction. Excited to be here for this chat.
Awesome. So, I'm going to just go right to what I think is probably one of the most packed questions or maybe difficult questions. I'm just going to go
Oh,
right
good.
to
Let's
it.
start hard. Yep.
Yeah, let's go. Start hard and then we'll work our way through, right? So here goes. Entrepreneurship is often glamorized. I'm sure you've come across that in your work. What are some of the realities that you wish more first time founders or somebody exploring entrepreneurship would understand before they started?
It is a great question. Uh, so, when it is glamorized to be a founder, to be an entrepreneur, create this, unicorn, be in the press, all the things. But the reality is you should start a company because you are solving something. You are solving a
Mhm.
problem that you're really, really passionate about, or you have specific expertise, or whatever your kind of origin story for it is you're looking to create something that doesn't exist. There are multiple ways to do that besides starting a company. So, the first thing that I advise is isolating what exactly is the problem you have identified. And is starting a
Yeah.
company the, the best way for you to solve that problem? Because it could be an intrapreneurship opportunity where you do this
Yeah.
inside of a larger organization. It could be that you find someone's already building something pretty close to your idea, and maybe you join forces with them. It, it could be a whole host of things. So make sure starting a company is right, and then make sure that starting a for-profit company is the right way to do it, because that has its own implications.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
if someone hasn't done it before, I'd strongly recommend to a lot of informational interviews with people who have. Make sure not only this is the right vehicle for solving the problem, but that you have as much information as possible to decide if it's the right thing for you and your life. Because this is
Yeah.
not easy by any definition, and it is not short term by any definition. And you really have to go into it knowing the structure and the system and the toll it will take on you personally and make a conscious decision that that's what you want to do.
Right. Good. That's good. I like what you said about the entrepreneurship. Maybe there's something that you could build to solve a problem within a company. So what advice? Now we've talked sort of to those really eager beavers who want to get in there and have glamorized entrepreneurship. Maybe what advice would you give to someone who feels they don't fit the typical mold of an entrepreneur?
Oh my gosh, I would give so much advice. But
You
I
know,
think a really big one is so much of entrepreneurship, programming and curriculum and popular press is about the funding aspect of it,
yeah,
which, is important because usually you do need more money than you would personally have to get a business off the ground, but it is not the definition of success. It is not the value that you bring, whether someone else writes you a check or not. It's not
sure.
validation of you, right, or your idea or your business. And it's so easy to get sucked into that focus on capital, 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 um, especially venture capital specifically, which is only ever meant to serve a pretty narrow definition of a type of business.
Yeah,
Most startups actually are misaligned with venture as the source of funding. So to also educate yourself and be aware of all the capital options. There are so many ways to finance
yeah,
your business. And if you do feel that you don't match a particular stereotype or archetype that funds are looking for or writing checks to, don't go there, or be very selective. Open up how you view the opportunity of financing your company, and where you have the strongest chances of obtaining that. So you value your own time and energy.
yeah. I like that. And well, as you know, I've read your book. And that was one of the things that I loved so much about it was that you talked about um, when you're pitching, you talk a lot about the pitch. I mean, really step by step how to build it. Um, it was not necessarily that you're pitching to someone for money, for monetary reasons. It could be for mentorship or so many other things. And so I agree with your assessment there in terms of the funding and we glamorize it and we're going to build something and have all this venture backing and then we're going to sell it and be millionaires. That's you probably have the data on like what percentage of entrepreneurs actually go that route, and it's probably
Yeah.
lower than what people would imagine.
Yeah, and really, I mean, if your primary motivation is for glitz and glamour of becoming an entrepreneur, think of a different way to get that fixed for yourself, because
Yeah,
you're 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 going to hit up against challenges and obstacles that you're not prepared for because you're looking at a different end goal.
right.
Really, again, it comes back to that. You start companies to solve problems or create innovation that you think is needed in the world, and that's your North Star. So if you stray from that and you find a different one, think about whether this is actually the path for you.
Sure. That's great. And it's almost like I sent you these questions, which I didn't, by the way. But so speaking of that good idea, so in our introduction to entrepreneurship course, we talk a lot about identifying real problems worth solving. And so, from your perspective, what separates a good idea from a truly viable business opportunity?
Oh, such a, I love the like wording and picking up on things that are so important for students, especially to know and feel confident in, is whether something is a good idea is not dictated by mentors and investors. It's
Yeah.
dictated by the people you're trying to sell to. So whether something's a good idea, like one of our core principles at Scroobious is we don't tell anyone whether we think something is a good idea or viable. We don't give that kind of feedback. We give tons of
Yeah,
feedback on how you tell your story, but we don't give feedback on whether it's a good business because it's not for us to say. It's for your
sure.
potential customers to say. So that's where it is so important to do as much market research and direct customer research as you can. Validate that this is a pain point that people will pay to solve and
Yeah.
quantify that data that you're collecting and that information. That's what investors care about is, can you show me how you have removed risk that this will become adopted by your market before you have your product? And you do that by talking to the people who would buy it.
Yeah, that's great. So speaking of that customer, or the audience, so students oftentimes struggle with clearly defining who their target customer is. What advice do you have for narrowing down the customer segment early on?
Yeah, it's a good one. And also, it's probably going to change over time.
Right.
And that again comes from
Well,
the market research you do.
yeah,
Um, but I think it goes hand in hand with your problem definition. And so, like, something I see a lot, and I can speak to this myself too at the beginning of starting Scroobius, is there's usually a big problem that you're going after, right? Like
right.
the funding gap for me, the inequity of where innovation capital goes. That's the big one. Well, no one company is going to solve that problem. It's too big,
Right.
right? So
Right.
like where are you starting from? Is it too big for you to solve? If so,
Yeah.
keep defining it down until it's at the place where you solve it. Then think
Mm,
about, well,
that's good.
who is going to pay for that? The thing that you solve, not the big problem. Then you can start getting a little more specific into your customer profiles and segments, but it's always who pays for that, which could be different than who uses it at the end of the day,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Like before this, I ran a medical device company. The users, the patients didn't pay for it. That wasn't our market validation. You have to
Right.
isolate who's paying for your solution.
That's key. That's a good little nugget there. So if we let's say we have okay, I have an example actually, a real life student example from this semester. We have a group who is working on they want to solve the problem of heat exhaustion with people who wear helmets or like football pads and heavy uniforms. And so they started out thinking about, college football players. And their product is some sort of insert that they would put into a helmet, like an ice pack sort of type of insert. And in talking with them as they're building out their assignment, really, they say, well, really, we this could go for football teams and lacrosse and construction workers, and we talked about sort of narrowing it down like you've talked about, and then also who's going to be paying for it. That wouldn't necessarily be, not directly, it wouldn't be the users. It might be maybe the universities, or for construction workers it might be the company is paying for them, not the workers who would be the users. So that's kind of a real life example of separating the two.
Yeah, that's a perfect one. And then when you think about, okay, all these different uses, where do you start? Right? That's your
Yeah,
go to market.
because we're not going to
You can,
say, oh, we can serve everybody. That would be huge. And who can afford to market to that and to build the product for that, right? So that's why, one of the reasons why you're saying
exactly.
narrow it down. Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly. And
that's
then
good.
even then, right, you can think about like if it's a university athletic team, well, the university is the payer. That's a very different payer profile than a large corporate construction company. Very different
Right.
budget structure, money
Right.
available. How much of a
Whether it's a
problem is
public
it for
university
both
or
of them?
private. Yeah.
And that's how you start getting to the, okay, so our initial, this is why, and then you can communicate it during your pitch if you're seeking funding to say, this is why we're starting with this segment. And it just really helps you with that clarity of decision making.
Right. Instead of saying we can help everybody who needs to wear a helmet. That's, yeah, it's
Yeah,
not really
or saying
focused.
we're going to start with college football because we're in college, right? That's not
Yeah.
the right reason to pick a beachhead
Yeah.
market. There might be a better segment.
Right. That's good. So, all right, kind of sticking with this example, we emphasize minimum viable products as a way to test assumptions quickly. What does a strong MVP look like in your experience, and what do founders often overcomplicate?
Oh, founders overcomplicate everything. Me too.
Same, same, same.
Um, so I think it's most helpful to think about an MVP or the minimum viable product as what will help you remove risk that this will work when you put more money behind it and more time, right? The MVP is meant to reduce risk so that you're spending the rest of it wisely as you move forward and you're validating that this is something to move forward with. So rather than just thinking about like, well, what's the least expensive thing we could do, or what's the
Yeah.
however you're thinking about the production of it, think both what is cost effective that we could build, whether it's tech or a physical good, it doesn't really matter. But more importantly, what are we measuring to show that it makes it less risky to build this for real and to bring it to the market? And
That's
that's what really makes an effective MVP.
That's great. We talked about recently. We used the example of Dropbox and how their original MVP was just a drawing, really, and then a video, um, and and now look at it. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Let's see here. Okay, let's talk about your book, Funding for the Rest of Us. It challenges the idea that venture capital is the only path. What are some of the most overlooked funding options that founders should consider?
So the very first thing to always consider is, do you align with an equity investment of some kind? So venture capital falls under an equity investment, right? Which is you are selling ownership in your company for that
Right.
money, which immediately means you have to be building towards selling your company, or else you are misaligned with the capital you're taking. Because
Oh,
an
that's good.
equity investor, yeah, they only make money when you sell and a share is worth more than what they invested. So
Right.
if your vision for your company is to just operate it ongoing and own it and not be working to sell it, that is perfectly fine. And most startups in the country or like in the world are like that. But you don't
Yeah.
want to take equity investors then because you're misaligned.
Right.
So you want to look at non-dilutive forms of capital, which means the money you get is repaid in a different way than from ownership, which could be
Sure.
interest on a loan.
Interest.
It could
Yeah.
be repaying a percent of your revenue every month to a certain extension above what the primary amount of money was to you. There's lots of different creative factors there. It could be grants. It could be other types of structured debt. There's lots and lots of options.
Yeah.
It could be working with a fiduciary partner where you can accept philanthropic money. There's all kinds of things, and you can combine. But those are your two big buckets: is, are you diluting? Are you selling for ownership, or are
Hmm.
you not? And then
That's
within
good.
each, there's different ways of getting that money. So under equity investment, venture capital is one way. It's very specific, and it's a
Yeah.
business versus angel investors, which tend to get lumped with venture capital, but they're very different because an angel investor is
Right.
not a business, it's a person. And that's a fundamentally different source of capital with different
Sure.
expectations and different needs.
Yeah, that's great. So, how can an early stage founder test their idea just when they're starting out without spending a lot of money?
Oh, so many ways, especially today.
Yeah.
I mean, the first thing is just go out and talk to people. Talk to people who are in your market, talk to people who are not, talk to your family and friends, just folks to see if it makes sense. As
Hmm.
many people as possible. You'll get feedback on the uh, how
The
attractive what you're
solution.
talking about is, but you'll also train yourself to be able to speak about it more
Mm,
clearly. Every time you do, you're going to say it a little bit differently and you're going to pay attention to what resonates or what's confusing. And without verbalizing it in the real world, not just yourself, not just talking to Claude or
yeah.
ChatGPT,
Getting it out of your head.
you
Yeah. Yeah.
get out into the world and see how people react to it. That's the number one step. And it doesn't cost anything but time. And that's a good use of your time. There's other things you can do, like throw up a landing page, which you can
Mm,
basically do for free and see if people
right.
will join a wait list, see if people will fill out a quick little survey for you. Start collecting some data, something you can quantify to say, hey, okay, 1,000 people just gave me their email for like this description that I had, and I don't even know half of these people. Word of mouth started going. That's a huge signal.
That's great. That those are just two great ideas that are not the dreaded survey. In so many entrepreneurial programs, we have these talks, and then all of a sudden, your messages are blowing up with like Google surveys, Google Forms.
Yes,
Like,
yes.
so you're talking to people, but I like the efficiency of you're kind of killing two birds with one stone when you're talking to people about your idea, and then also just refining your pitch, basically, or your initial, kind of your elevator pitch. I like that.
Yeah, one of my I say this, it's a tip I give in the book, and it was actually somebody who had me do it for them. That was how I came across it. But it's one of the best things you can do is when you describe your solution or what you're building to somebody new who never heard it before, ask that person to say it back to you. So this happened
Oh
to me at
yeah.
a conference when a woman who I'm now friends with, but I had met for the first time, told me what she did, and she said, "Hey, I know this is going to seem a little weird, but can you say it back to me? Can you tell me what you think I do?" Right? And I was like, "Oh, all right. Well, here's what I think you do," and it gives you so much information because there's only a
Yeah.
few ways it can go, right? Like either that person does say it back to you correctly, they're going to say it in a really efficient way because they processed on their own while you were talking and they give you a more concise way to say it. Or they say
Yeah.
it wrong or they can't tell you what you do because they didn't retain it. You got some work to do, right? No matter
Yeah.
what, you get good feedback.
Right. And we know that perception is reality. So if however they perceived it, however they tell it back to you is how they perceived it. And yeah, either they've gotten it or they haven't, or, you know, and I think you can sort of feel yourself rambling when you're,
Yeah.
and you're like, just land the plane. And so that practice is probably good. Like I said, you kind of killing two birds with one stone. So, well, I knew that I want to be really respectful of your time. I knew that 30 minutes would fly by. So I just have one more question and then we'll close it out. If you could get, and we haven't even scratched the surface, I realize, but you have two great resources and well, three actually. Oh, that reminds me. I want to put up, I made these little banners before you got on. So we talked about your website for founders, Scroobious. I want to put that up there, scroobious.com for people watching. And then we also talked about your book, Funding for the Rest of Us. And if people wanted to find you on LinkedIn, we know don't message you there, but at least connect because you actually put out such great information, insightful information based on your experience as a founder and an author, and I think people could really benefit from those two places. So beyond that, if you could give the audience just one piece of advice, um, people who are considering entrepreneurship, they're considering starting a business, or they see a problem that's been nagging at them for so long, and so they've maybe made a solution, or they're thinking about a solution in their head, what would your best piece of advice to them be?
So there's so many pieces of advice that I would give, but I think a really big one is when you first start off in entrepreneurship, it's usually an identity that is new to you. And all of a sudden, the world seems really big and frenetic, and there's all this stuff out there, and people telling you what to do, and mentors and investors are super opinionated and speak very confidently, and you think you have to follow everything, and it can be really easy to feel small and
Yeah,
insecure and like you don't matter, and how could you possibly be this, big entrepreneur? You're just this person researching
that
something.
dreaded
And
imposter syndrome.
yeah, imposter syndrome, but also like you know that feeling of, well, how could, I'm just this doing this little thing over here. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
But everything starts that way, and everyone starts that way at some point. And the things that really matter grow and they take off because you put in the work to understand your market and you build something that's needed. I get so excited working with student entrepreneurs. I was just 2 nights ago, I was at MIT lesson, I was at Babson, I was hearing all these pitches from all these amazing innovators,
yeah,
and you're solving things from your point of view, which is different than any generation before. You have technological tools available to you that no one has ever had available to be able to build
yeah.
faster and in different ways. And that's really exciting. And to always hold on to the meaning behind what you're doing. If you ever start feeling small or insignificant, go back to that, because it's not. If it was small and insignificant, you wouldn't be doing it. You'd do something else. So always go back to that reason why.
I love that. See, you thought of a great piece of advice. I knew you would. Just going back to that original meaning, that's good. Well, I really, really so much appreciate your time and your insights, and I'm sure the students who watch this video will appreciate them too. You might get some LinkedIn ads here and there.
Go for it.
Um, yeah,
No, LinkedIn, I put so much out there. Every Friday from Scroobious, we send a newsletter with tactical tips. Like, please do connect.
yes.
And it's the whole reason I do what I do, is to help educate and bring transparency.
Yeah, it's so exciting. So yeah, so for everyone watching, I encourage you to reflect on how our conversation went today and how it connects with your own business ideas, particularly as you approach validating your idea and understanding your customer and thinking strategically about funding. And we'll continue these concepts in class. And if I was local, I would say, let me take you to lunch or buy you a coffee or, something. I so appreciate it. And I know the students will too. And I'm super happy that we were able to connect quasi in person. I feel like I know so much about
Yeah,
you. So yeah, thank you
absolutely.
so
And thank
much,
you
Allison.
for helping shape part of the book. You are a beta reader, and that was really, really meaningful. So thank you.
I'm so excited to get my copy and read the finished product in real life. So
Oh
yeah,
my God, it's such a
thank
big
you.
book. Do you want to see? It's so much. Look how big this is. It's so
Oh
much
my
bigger than I
gosh.
thought it was
I
going to
can't
be.
believe no. Well, because we broke it down into chunks and you would put out a chapter and we would
Yeah.
do our little notes, which I loved. And that was something that I was like, when you were mentioning, the entrepreneur, the world feels so big, and you're like, I'm just this. I'm like, I am not qualified to do this, but I learned so much, and I don't know if I was able to contribute much of anything, but
Yes.
the process was very fun. Yeah.
No, so much. It's part of why I added like a bunch of chapters. I was reading all of your notes, and it was like, of course I have to say this. I'm like, of course I didn't talk about this thing. It was so helpful. It was like my own little MVP, right? And like getting real
Yeah.
feedback from real people who I don't
Yeah,
know who
yeah,
will
right.
like tell me the
Absolutely.
truth. Yeah.
Well, that is an example of an MVP. I mean, and sharing it and getting that feedback. And I think when we're just starting out, we think, oh, we're going to send a survey. And I mean, it happened for me when I did the MBA. There were so many surveys. So I think even just getting creative about that MVP is
Yeah,
something that you can really get some good data if you get really creative about that. So yeah.
totally,
Okay,
totally.
Allison. Well, enjoy your weekend. Thank you so much again. It was
Yeah.
fun.
Awesome. Thank you. This was really great.
But
All right. Have a
yeah,
great weekend.
you too. Bye
Bye.
bye.